Let me just start off today's video by saying that Duff beer at Universal Studio tastes like total ass juice. And for those of you guys that are ready to ask me, well, how do I know what ass juice tastes like? Well, that's not what we're here to talk about, okay? Stop trying to change the subject on me. Anyways, all jokes aside, guys, in today's video, I thought we would talk about another kind of bittersweet theme park area. Today, we're talking about the Simpsons Land at Universal Studios. Let's not forget this land opened up way back in 2008, or I should say the ride, and then eventually they would expand to make it an entire area. If I'm not mistaken, around 2013, it officially became the Simpsons area. And look, the franchise has been a mainstay since the late 80s. The first full episode came out in 1989, and before that there was a small little short that aired in 1987, but the first full episode was in 89. Let's not forget the animated show has definitely evolved over the past few years. Originally, the show was actually owned by Fox. Disney would eventually acquire the rights to the show in 2019, and essentially since the day that this occurred, people have speculated on how long we're going to have the Simpsons themed area at Universal Studios. A lot of people have speculated, and actually multiple different sources have pointed to the year of 2028 as being the potential year for when either Universal Studios loses the rights or gives up the rights for having the Simpsons at their theme parks, or they decide to potentially restructure a deal or a contract where they are able to keep the ride as well as the themed areas in each individual Universal park. As I said, I love the atmosphere, the aura of entering these lands and the Simpsons. I mean, I grew up watching Homer destroy his liver. I grew up watching Sideshow Bob trying to take out Bart Simpson. It's just an absolutely fascinating show. It's one of my favorites, but at the same time, it's very painful to enter the land because I know that there is a possibility, a very strong possibility, that we just won't see this attraction at Universal Studios anymore, and it really is sad. Let's just assume that they are already planning not to restructure the contract or to re-sign a contract, and let's just assume that Disney is already planning to do something with the Simpsons in their own theme parks. There's really absolutely no motivation for Universal to try to do anything creative or innovative at the land. I'm not saying that even if they were to re-sign a contract, they're going to do anything crazy like rebuild from the ground up. For the most part, they're just going to do minor refurbishments, maybe bring in some new characters, maybe bring in some more interactive features and things of that nature. But now let's assume that they're not planning on re-signing the contract. What's their motivation? They really have no need to do that. They're going to let the little area kind of start to fall apart little by little. There may be some chipping on some of the displays. Some of their interactive features may just stop working altogether. We already kind of see this in the queue, at least at Hollywood, where there are some really dusty areas where spider webs everywhere. It just kind of makes it feel like they're abandoning this particular section of the theme park. And I think this could be a red flag that in the foreseeable future, we won't see a Simpsons themed attraction at Universal. But clean your boogers off, clean those disgusting salty tears off your face. It's not all bad. I mean, I guess it is bad to an extent, but there's a possibility that if they decide to move the Simpsons out and into Disneyland, maybe they do something really cool here. We've often floated around the idea, especially here in Hollywood, that they would do something Shrek themed, maybe bring in the swamp here, have some interactive features, have a section where maybe you can go in and explore, and then probably the Simpsons ride would just be rethemed. They would probably use the same technology, just add, obviously Shrek into the ride somehow. This one seems to be the one that is gaining the most traction just because they already have the costumes, they already have the swamp back in Florida, and so it only makes sense for them to just copy and paste it into Hollywood. I would love to see them kind of extend the Jurassic Park area into where the Simpsons theme park area is at. Maybe they could do something crazy where they have even more animatronics there, especially here at Hollywood, where they just have that little play area for the children. They have the gift shop, and then they have the ride. I think they could expand a little bit more, theme that area, for Jurassic, especially considering we are getting more movies in the coming years. We already have the new Scarlett Johansson-led Jurassic film that is slated for this year, and that only tells me that they still have plans for the franchise, and this would just, be perfect. They could also utilize the space to continue expanding on the Harry Potter universe. Now, I have never been to the Florida Universal theme park, but I have been to the one here in Hollywood, and that one would easily expand outwards. The Harry Potter and the Simpsons areas are right next to each other within like a few feet, so it would just make perfect sense to do something like that. Not to mention, Harry Potter has always been one of the more popular attractions, even though it's been years since we've seen a brand new Harry Potter film, not counting the spin-offs. However, there is still somewhat of a rabid fan base for this franchise. You'll often see like quite a bit of a bottleneck in the Harry Potter area, for example, at Universal Studios Hollywood. And so I think this would kind of alleviate that. You could add some extra shops, maybe some more interactive features. That was a big, huge selling point at the beginning, when you could, purchase the wands there at the actual theme park. A lot of these being exclusive to the park, they would interact with things in the shops or in the windows and things of that nature. And I think they could continue to build out or flesh out that whole idea. And as I said, it makes perfect sense. It's like right around the corner. As soon as you exit the Harry Potter land, the Simpsons theme park is, or the themed area is right in front of you. So that would just be a really easy transition, at least here in Hollywood. I think there's also a pretty good chance that they decide to just revert this back to the Back in the Future ride with like obviously upgraded visuals and technology. Although I will say, at the same time, as much as we love the franchise, we also have to admit that it is a much older film franchise, and not many people, or not a lot of the younger generations, are too familiar with the film franchise. And so they would probably prefer something that is fresh, something that is modern, that really speaks to the newer generation of theme park goers. Let's not forget, the new Epic Universe at Florida is supposed to be getting a ton of new lands, altogether 5 new lands. And so that kind of opens up the opportunity for one of those lands to kind of transition itself into Hollywood. It would make perfect sense because they already have the rights to actually utilize some of these franchises if they don't belong to Universal. And so they could easily probably just like adjust the contract to include Hollywood, or maybe they already include that in there and we just don't know about it. But we could see, for example, How to Train Your Dragon be brought over to Hollywood. We could also see a Donkey Kong area, which is something that we've seen already in 2 different theme parks. And so this is another one of those that I'm kind of a little bit bitter at the fact that there are 2 other lands or 2 other Universals that are actually going to be receiving the Donkey Kong area, and we still don't have it here in Hollywood. I will say the only issue with bringing Donkey Kong here would be that edition would be in the upper lot, whereas in the Super Mario universe is actually in the lower lot. So it wouldn't really make a lot of sense. You would be transitioning from Donkey Kong into, the stairway, and then, having to walk through other attractions to finally make it to Super Mario, where it makes way more sense to have them intertwined or connected through one portal. And I will say, I am very frustrated at the fact that we're not getting a Donkey Kong land, and also the fact that the Super Mario land seems to be built upwards rather than square footage that you can walk on. It feels like you're looking up more than you are looking at your surroundings, which is a little bit frustrating, but that seems to be like a topic for another video. All in all, I feel like the perfect idea for this land, if the Simpsons were to leave, at least in my personal opinion, is to bring Universal monsters to this location. And this has been kind of in the works now for quite some time. We see it a little bit when they have their little Halloween celebrations. We have some of those monsters have like their own little houses or things of that nature, or they're just walking around the entirety of the Universal lot. And so this has been kind of in the works, and I feel like it would just be perfect. They probably don't have to, as far as I know, they don't have to pay any rights for those characters because they own them, and so they could just easily port on, little attractions and then make a ride that, includes all of the Universal monsters together, or just theme it to one particular monster. I think they're doing the Wolfman at Epic Universe. Maybe they could do something Frankenstein related, or Frankenstein's Bride, for example. The possibilities are endless here. The last idea, and it's definitely my least favorite because I'm not a big fan of the franchise, but they could integrate Fast and the Furious, the film franchise, into this little area. I'm not sure how they would do it. I'm not even sure it would work. Maybe have some car props, maybe have something along those lines. Obviously the ride would work, with any franchise. They could just port on different visuals and things of that nature, but I don't know how the theming would work there. But But that seems to be kind of something that they're gearing up for. They already have the Fast and the Furious roller coaster, and then they have that little segment with the tram tour where I guess you're kind of causing mischief with the Fast and the Furious cast. If that's your style, that's awesome for you, but just in my personal humble opinion, that's always the weakest part of the entire tram tour. It just doesn't make any sense. Hopefully they decide to replace it with something else. Compared to like Peter Jackson's Little King Kong segment, I absolutely love that, and it makes sense for the tram tour, whereas in the Fast and the Furious little segment, just it feels completely out of place. But there you guys have it. I suppose this entire video is just me spitballing and essentially just me trying to speculate on what we could see if The Simpsons does end up leaving Universal Studios. There might be like a part 2 of this video about what they could potentially do at Disneyland for The Simpsons. Like, how would they theme it? Would we see something similar to what they did in Universal Studios, or would it be completely revamped, maybe a little bit of a roller coaster ride, or maybe they just retheme an existing ride or an existing little land and make it, Simpsons themed? I'm very curious to see what the future holds here. As I said, I love The Simpsons. I grew up watching it, but every time that I think about it, or every time that I look at like my old footage from when I went, it's really painful. It's kind of sad to think that we could not only see it leave Universal, but there will be a long stretch of time. Let's say if they do decide to bring it to Disneyland, there would be a long stretch of time, potentially years, of not having a Simpsons theme park. There would obviously have to be the announcement. They would have to get like permits for the actual construction. They would, build up the anticipation, and then finally when it does open, there would be like that whole span of time where it's just cast members and then potentially media members, and it's this big giant debacle. And it's kind of sad to think that that's the road that we're going down. But look, this could all be for absolutely nothing. Like, we could potentially see Universal keep the rights to The Simpsons. However, in my personal opinion, I think it is going to leave. It makes no sense for Disney to continue playing this out, especially considering there are some pretty large portions of both the Florida as well as the California theme park that could easily, utilize a new theme park, just because of how much space there is, whether it's like destroying a parking lot or just, utilizing space that is kind of empty at the moment. I think it makes perfect sense for them. However, I will say, let's not forget, Florida does have a Hulk and a Simpsons ride, if I'm not mistaken. So that just kind of adds to the uncertainty as to why those rides have been allowed to be at Universal for this span of time, and Disney hasn't really made a move to cancel them out or to maybe restructure a contract or just get rid of them at Universal altogether. So it's kind of interesting, and as I said, overall it's just kind of sad because at the moment I don't think they can do anything really too innovative or creative in the land, knowing that there is a potential that they lose it. I think at the moment the best thing that you can hope for Universal is just upkeep of the land. Make sure like the interactive features still work when people arrive there. Make sure that you upgrade the Duff Beer because it's disgusting, or you make sure that you bring in new characters. But as I said, I think at the moment the best you can hope for is just like keeping it at a standard that they've held it for years now. I don't think they're going to do anything too crazy or too over the top. And I feel like that at the same time is a little bit sad. But if you guys haven't visited the whole Simpsons themed area at Universal, whether it's in Hollywood or Florida, I highly suggest you guys do it. There are these little moments that are definitely going to bring you back to your childhood. There are these really cool references everywhere. It seems like every corner has just a ton of theming and a ton of effort put into them. And I feel like that is not something you always see at Universal. And it's not a knock on the theme park as a whole, but there are some pretty big wide areas that feel, I don't know, a little bit lacking. They feel a little bit empty, a little bit soulless, and it's nice when you walk into the Simpsons area because everywhere you look, there's something that is going to remind you of the show. But there you guys have it. It's just mostly just pure speculation. I'm just trying to think out loud. I'm very curious to see what you guys have to say. Do you guys feel like the Simpsons ride or the themed attraction is going to stay there for the foreseeable future, or do you guys see it moving over to Disneyland? And if you guys do think it's moving over there, what are some ideas? What rides would you like to see? What characters would you guys like to see at the land? Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Hopefully you guys like this type of content. If you guys do, you can definitely stick around. We do like uploading stuff, based on comic books, like MCU stuff, DCU stuff, but from time to time we'll cross over to making stuff that's like theme park related. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Stay safe out there, and I'll see you guys in the next one.